My theology professor at Nashotah House grew up on a sheep farm. He often tells us stories about sheep. And the one thing I have learned about sheep, aside from the theology that I've learned from him, is that the image of a lost sheep is not something to be pitied. As my professor would say, sheep are stupid by nature. And the lost sheep is one that is particularly stupid. As an example, he told us a story about a lost sheep, a ewe, that wanted to get a drink. So she went to the stream, which is all very fine and good. Get a drink, come back to the herd, all should be well. But the bank of the stream was such that when the sheep went down into the stream, it couldn't see the herd. The bank was too high. Instead of climbing back up the bank so that the sheep could see where the herd was, the sheep decided, this is an unsolvable problem. So it lay down and decided to die. Seriously, because that's what sheep do. The sheep forgot that there's a herd, and the sheep forgot that there was a shepherd. So that for the sheep, the problem was so big and so overwhelming, it might just as well die. This apparently happens quite frequently with sheep. I wouldn't know, but it is. And it is a real issue for a shepherd, because if the shepherd doesn't realize the sheep is missing, he has only a couple of hours to locate the sheep before it dies and get it back to the warmth and stability of the herd. That also means that he has to leave all the other sheep just to attend to that really dumb sheep, the one who is so stuck in their problem that they can't seem to even help themselves. No pulling up by the bootstraps for this sheep. This shepherd must save it if it is to live. So when John in our gospel speaks about the good shepherd as the one who will go and leave the rest of the flock and find the one lost sheep, the analogy is not very flattering to us who follow the good shepherd. The lost sheep is not very smart, not following the rules, not staying with the herd where it is safe. The lost sheep thought it could go it alone, thought it could just go to the stream and get water, and now it is endangering everyone. The sheep who followed the rules are endangered, and the shepherd who has to fend off the wolf is being endangered. And yet, have you ever noticed that it is exactly those lost sheep that Jesus seems to call to continue his plan of salvation? Think about it. Matthew the apostle, he was not exactly what you would label a smart sheep. We all know he was a tax collector or a sinner. But let's not confuse a tax collector of Jesus' time with an IRS agent in our time. Tax collectors, also known as publicans, charged tolls and taxes on behalf of the Roman government. Each year, the tax collector would prepay the Roman government what he thought would be the total tax that he could collect. As a result, he could then recoup the total amount during the year. But this led to widespread greed and corruption. The tax collecting profession was saturated with unscrupulous people who overtaxed people to maximize their personal gain. Since the Jews considered themselves victims of Roman oppression, Jewish tax collectors like Matthew, who overtaxed their fellow countrymen, were especially despised. Jews viewed such favor for Rome as a betrayal and equal to treason against God. Matthew clearly was not a smart sheep. And Jesus didn't just choose Matthew, he also chose Peter, the fisherman, illiterate, poor, living from hand to mouth, and Mary Magdalene, who was possessed by at least 7 demons. none of these people would be what we would call good church-going people. Before Jesus came along, none of them had lives that we would want to emulate. They were outcasts, thugs, in trouble with the law, down on their luck, people who mistreated and misused others. But Jesus saw those lost sheep as the key for his plan of salvation. Each of these outcasts became witnesses to the greatest story ever told, the resurrection of our Lord. Because of these lost sheep, God's kingdom on earth extended past the reaches of the Roman Empire. Matthew went on to evangelize and spread the good news in the region of Egypt. Peter traveled all over what is now Syria, Greece, and eventually Rome. Mary Magdalene is said to have traveled as far as the south of France. They traveled from their small villages in Palestine to far-flung places in Africa, Europe, and Asia. They were witnesses to Jesus' love and part of the plan of salvation. These lost sheep. In our epistle, John writes, "We know love by this, that he laid down our life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for one another." Our belief in Jesus cannot be separated from how and who we love. Our belief in his name is revealed in laying down our life for another. But how are we supposed to do that? John's epistle answers that for us. John writes, "If you see some brother or sister in need and have the means to do something about it, but turn a cold shoulder and do nothing, what happens to God's love? It disappears." John does not mince words. We must be like Jesus, the Good Shepherd, willing to lay down our lives even for lost sheep. We cannot claim to believe in Jesus if we are unwilling to lay down our life for another, regardless of who he or she is. If we believe, we will love. If we do not love, we do not believe. The opportunities for laying down your life in love are everywhere. You don't have to go far. They are the family and friends we see every day. They are the people of this parish and this town. They are the strangers who pass through our lives. They are the anonymous ones talked about as issues of immigration, race, poverty, hunger, homelessness, and education. These opportunities for laying down life are not just circumstances. They are people, human beings created in the image and likeness of God. Every person, no matter if they are a found sheep or a lost sheep, is made in the image of God. Whenever we lay down our life for another, we proclaim that resurrection is not just an event of the past. It is a present reality, not just a historical remembrance. Laying down our life makes Jesus' resurrection tangible and real. The only reason we can ever lay down our life for another is because Jesus first laid down his life for us. The shepherd never takes his sheep somewhere he is unwilling to go. He never asks us, his sheep, something he himself is not willing to do or to give. Every time we lay down our life in love for another, we proclaim the death, Jesus' death, and proclaim his resurrection even as we await his day of coming. We need only to be present, open our eyes, listen, and pay attention to know how and where love asks us to lay down our life for another. A laying down of our lives in love means that we will have to change our routines. It is no longer business as usual. The life and well-being of the other now sets our agenda, guides our decisions, and determines our actions. Laying down our life is not, however, the end of life. It wasn't for Jesus, and it will not be for us. It is rather the beginning of a new life, a more authentic life, a life that looks a lot like Jesus' life. It is the life in and by which we hear the voice of the Good Shepherd call our name, and we follow where he leads. Lost sheep, found sheep, it didn't matter to Jesus. And all he asks of us is to follow him and do the same. Amen.
As is our tradition, we invite your comments and questions online. If you're here in the room, please feel free to send a text to that number, and we will take a look at it. And someone actually did text in a comment, and it said, boy, you know, it's almost like Jesus chose those that he knew who would truly appreciate what he was offering. I think in reference to, like, you know, Matthew and Peter.
I like that.
Yeah.
That gives me tingles. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So thank you for that. So our rector chimed in. I don't know if you saw that on the comment. You want to read what he said?
Sure. He says, we believe many problems are unsolvable.
Yes, we do. And yet we have the Good Shepherd.
That makes me think, though, like, I mean, we could start naming things, but I sometimes wonder, has God ever looked at creation as a problem that is unsolvable? You know, like when the creation, the seminarian's like furiously shaking her head. I mean, but like when creation goes off the rails in the Genesis 2 story, you know, I have yet to see any interpretation of that as God saying, I wash my hands of all of this, and I walk away from all of it. In the same way that, you know, if I'm making something out of clay and I mess it up, I've got the luxury of being able to just, you know, wreck it and start it over again. And I never see that as God's attitude of being, I'm gonna see this creation as unsolvable. And if that's God's attitude towards us, I wonder how we can be imitators of God in that way, to never look at each other as unsolvable.
God is not the hired hand. He is the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd cares about his sheep and will always go after the lost sheep. God is not the hired hand, because the hired hand doesn't care.
Several comments of well done, Julie. Wonderful sermon.
Thank you.
So somebody chimed in saying every being is important, including animals. So, which those of us who are dog and cat lovers and
I would say that my
horses
and
and
my
whatever,
cat appreciate that.
That's absolutely true. So I had another thought that building on what our conversation was at 8 o'clock, we're talking about, you know, if I'm the stupid sheep, because I am the stupid sheep sometimes, but I'm wondering, can I also at times be the shepherd?
Yeah.
Can I also at times be part of the herd that is trying to look out for the stupid sheep, but I don't do that all the time? And I wonder, at different times in my life, I've been in all of those roles, and I've failed miserably at them. And then there are the times where I feel like I'm in that groove with God and things go well. So I don't know if you all have had that experience of feeling like
we just have to look at the apostles again as examples. I mean, Paul was constant. St. Paul, a person who went after, hundreds of new Christians and killed them. And then he became St. Paul. And he struggled with the churches that he was shepherding. He struggled with them. I mean, this is not a quick fix. Nobody says it's going to be easy. Yeah. And just like the dandelion,
Good hook there.
I know. Just like the dandelion, we're going to have tough times, but we're required to continue to try and grow.
So, someone texted in just saying that there's so much that we can do today, whether it's wearing a mask or getting vaccinated, following the rules, doing the things that we need to look out for the entire herd. Even though I'm the stupid one sometimes, and I don't always follow the rules like I should, but there are things that I can step into and actively participate in laying down my life,
Right.
even if I don't want to all the time, but I can lay down my life for the benefit of others.
Right.
So
And it's
difficult.
not always people that are part of the herd that we have to look out for, too. St. Matthew, before when he was Levi and became Matthew, tax collector, not allowed to go to the synagogue, not allowed to marry a Jewish woman because he was a tax collector. All of these prohibitions because of the lifestyle he chose, and yet Jesus sought him out and said, "Follow me," and he did.
And he did. Yeah. Good. Well, thank you all for your
Excellent.
participation. Thank you,
Thank you.
Julie.
Thank you.